Good afternoon. It's 12 minutes past 3. We will come back to the knife crime story, which is dominating every headline at the moment. But there's this story that we need to address as well. It's about whether veganism is becoming a form of terrorism. Police were called to a protest at a pig farm in Lincolnshire on Saturday after 100 activists held a sit-in protest on the property. Members of the animal rights action group Meet the Victims entered one of the farm's pig housing units. They say they want to expose the reality of animal farming and exploitation of farmed animals. But there are allegations in the press that 2 young piglets were killed as a result of the protest by the campaigners. Chris Hines is from the group Meet the Victims and has been a vegan for a number of years. He joins me in the studio. Chris, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the programme. Why did you decide to take part in this protest?
Well, it's something I'm extremely passionate about. I mean, we're a nation of animal lovers, but for some reason we tend to forget about the animals that are on our plates. We have great relationships with dogs and cats, but yet animals like pigs, which have been shown to be more intelligent than dogs, for some reason we're okay to stick them into factory farms and send them to their deaths for foods we don't essentially need. So I think it's a great injustice, and it's something that we should all be speaking up about.
So what happened on Saturday at this pig farm?
So essentially there was around 200 activists set up on the farm. 100 of them were outside, just signs and banners, and the other 100 actually entered the premises to go into one of the pig farrowing sheds.
Illegally?
No, this is so technically trespass is a civil offence, but until they ask us to leave, and then it's obviously aggravated trespass. But I mean, essentially what we wanted to do is expose the reality of these farms to the wider public. I mean, the industry would like to feed us these nice images of these animals in these rolling fields and stuff, and the majority of the animals that we do eat are stuck in these sheds. Also, what we don't tend to realise is, regardless of how these animals are kept, all these animals are going to end up in a slaughterhouse. So even if they are in these nice fields, they're all essentially going to their death. Now, it's been shown time and time again that we can live happily and healthy on a vegan diet. That's backed up by the British Dietetic Association and most of the major nutrition and dietetic organisations.
But you have a choice to be vegan, to live a vegan lifestyle. No one's interfered with that.
Oh, no, of course.
Doesn't someone who wants to eat meat have a right to eat meat irrespective of how the animal is ultimately dispatched?
Well, I'd say a personal choice stops the moment there's a victim involved. And unfortunately, when we do eat animals and sit down, there is a victim at the end of our knife and fork.
Depends on your perspective, though.
Well, I mean, I guess you're an animal. I mean, what would you say if there were dogs in that?
No, well, dogs. We view dogs, and this is the dichotomy of this, of course, if you're a meat eater, we view dogs very differently, of course, and people will rightly get very upset when these horrific stories emerge from some Far East countries, of course, where they eat dogs.
But what's the difference between a dog and a pig?
I can't tell you, to be honest with you. I really can't.
A pig is more intelligent. The only difference is domestication.
It is domestication, but we have a different relationship. Yeah. Most people have a different relationship with a dog. Of course, some people have a relationship with a pig in that they nurture pigs, they keep them as pets, of course. But the point of this story is that with the vegan movement, some vegans are beginning to become a bit too overactive in their choice of how they campaign.
Right. I mean, would you say the same if it was dogs in those facilities, though, which is what I'm saying? Because in the end, all these animals can suffer. All these animals feel pain. They all have emotion, the same as the pets that we love.
I would hope, and I'm sure it's not the case, I would hope that animals that are farmed in the UK don't suffer unnecessarily. They will be dispatched at the end of their working lives.
Well, this is the thing. If it's been shown that we don't need them in our diets, then the whole action of animal farming in itself is completely unnecessary.
But it's choice, isn't it, Chris? That's the whole point.
But again, the choice has a victim.
But some people may want to accept that.
They want to accept to have a victim.
They may want to accept that because they're having a bacon sandwich in the morning, there has been you call it a victim, that a pig has been slaughtered for them to have that product on their breakfast table.
Yeah, but would you say the same if it was a dog? And again, we'll go back around in circles. In the end, all these are animals. The thing is, in the end, all these are animals.
If there were dogs kept on a farm, I'd join you. I'd be in front of the queue.
Exactly, and that is exactly our point. You've just summed it up there. People have a speciesist look where they care for one animal, but not the other. All these animals suffer the same, and they suffer even the same as us. So why are we putting some animals to a higher standard, such as cats and dogs, and we're letting pigs go through horrific acts? You know, pigs are put into gas chambers when they're taken to slaughterhouses. Would we ever accept a dog to be put into a gas chamber?
Take the dog out of the equation, or dogs per se out of the equation.
Let's just sum it up as animals.
No, on Saturday there was an illegal intrusion onto this farm, was there not?
Yes, there was, yes.
So the law was broken?
The law was broken. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's something for the police and the farmer to take up further. There is this story, which I think most people find rather distressing, is that a number of piglets died as a direct result of the intrusion. Is that true?
No, that's completely and utterly false. And we can prove that on many, many levels. For a start, if anyone wants to check online, there's about 50 different live streams from the activists entering the sheds. I challenge anyone to find any evidence on these live streams of any piglets dying by activists' hands. In fact, the pigs were found dead on arrival. Dead piglets in these facilities is extremely common. In fact, one of the pigs already had flies around it. His stomach was bloated out, showing that it had died many, many hours before we'd even arrived. The pig had dead piglets in a manure pile outside of the shed. About 5 to 6 other dead piglets were found in another shed where the activists hadn't even entered.
That all sounds horrific, but I will put it to you, Chris, that most people who are meat eaters, they don't want to think about it, they don't want to be confronted, and they might get a bit miffed with veganists becoming a bit more antagonistic in the way you're trying to put your message across.
No, and I agree, and this is one of the other big problems. Why is it good enough for our stomach, but it's not good enough for our eyes? Surely if we want to partake in the eating of another living being, we should at least be accepting of the reality of what these animals have to go through and the suffering that they go through. And I think if people knew the reality, they wouldn't do it.
But in the same way that you have an absolute right, of course, to protest peacefully and legally for your particular beliefs when it comes to meat and protecting animals, doesn't someone have a right to, if they choose to eat meat, irrespective of how that product, because it's an animal at some stage, and then it becomes a product. That's how most people will view it. They won't make that direct association. They don't want to think about it, and they don't want you to press it in their faces.
I mean, I would say, do people have a right to harm other humans? Because in the end, what is the actual difference between humans and animals that really makes it mean that we can treat them in such an extreme way that we would never treat ourselves? That is the question I would ask people. These animals suffer the same as us. They feel the same as us. Why are we putting them through things that we would never accept for ourselves? That's a clear double standard.
Okay, but they're not like us.
In what way? Can you name the difference between a human and an animal that really makes a difference?
While they have sentient feelings, clearly, and a heart, and one thinks probably a soul, they don't communicate like us. They're not the top of the food chain, as we like to think of ourselves.
I mean, would you consider yourself part of the food chain?
If I fell into the ocean full of sharks, yes.
Yeah, and lions can eat you.
If I thought I was in a game reserve and I happened to step out of the Land Rover, yes, I would be fair game. But the point is that there is this sort of element of vegan activism that is becoming really very prominent, and some might say, well, it's a bit like terrorism. You are terrorising people.
Okay, well, this is what I would say to that. I mean, what is more extreme? A load of activists going into a shed to try and let people know that the animals are being harmed, or people actually harming animals. That is more extreme. The animal agriculture industry itself is what is extreme. If anyone is terrorising anything, it's the industry terrorising animals.
So should we never, ever use an animal for food again?
Oh, it's completely unnecessary. Is it necessary? I mean, if you didn't eat animal products, would you die?
But that's not the question.
No, well, I mean, would you though?
What do we do with all these? If people have a choice to make, and their choice is they want to eat meat,
yes.
Do they stop because a few activists don't like the idea?
No, they shouldn't stop because a few activists don't like the idea. They should stop because there's a moral obligation to not harm innocent living beings when we don't need to.
Some people don't care. They just want Sunday roast. They want the Sunday roast. They want chicken for a Sunday lunch. They don't care.
But the same logic could make me say, well, I don't care and I want to go around killing other humans because it's my personal choice and I don't care.
I think
we would never accept
the law
that
is
as
somewhat
anything.
different, though.
And legality doesn't mean anything anyway.
You're putting animals on the same pedestal as a human being.
No, the thing is, I'm not. I understand that animals and humans are not on the same level. But what we shouldn't look at is that what we should look at, instead of looking at all the many differences, like the fact they got fur or they can't communicate, is look at the similarities between us. The fact that we are sentient beings, all experiencing this earth that we're on, that we all feel pain, we can all suffer.
What if there was an ethical, pain-free way of dispatching the animals?
I mean, may I ask how you would like to be killed in a way that would be pain-free, and would you accept it?
I would hopefully not be eaten, Chris. You're avoiding the question. The question is, if there was a way, perhaps, of stunning an animal so it doesn't feel any pain, it's unaware of its end, and it leads a healthy, happy life, right? Do you still object to that?
Yeah, because it is morally wrong to take the life of a
I might say your view is extreme.
They probably do.
Does it not turn people off the vegan cause? Rather than trying to encourage people to become vegans, you're forcing them. You're terrorising them to become vegans.
I'm not forcing. Find me anyone who's got a vegan shoving tofu down their mouth, and then maybe we could argue about forcing.
Maybe that's the next step we're trying to do.
What I would do is turn that argument around and be like, we are literally forcing our opinions on the animals. Like, we are literally forcing them into gas chambers. We're forcing baby male chicks into mincers because they're no good for us. We're forcing dairy cows to become pregnant so we can have milk.
Just for time reasons only. So no piglets were harmed. There are reports saying there were 2 or 5. So there were, as far as you're concerned, no piglets died as a direct result of the intrusion. 0
piglets died as a result of activists, but piglets were dead on the site, and that is the result of the farm and the farming. We will 100% deny anything, and as I said, I challenge anyone to find any evidence of this on our live stream.
Gives any activist, vegan activist, the right to invade someone else's property?
Well, the thing is, it's not so much that basically, legally, we don't have a right, do we?
So what were you there for?
Because sometimes extreme situations require extreme solutions, and unfortunately these animals are going through absolute hell in these facilities.
What if the farmers start taking extreme solutions?
Well, the farmers may fight back and everything, but the thing is, in the end, this was a peaceful, non-violent action where all we did is go inside these sheds and live stream to the public, and that was all.
Let me just bring Greg into the conversation. Greg, good afternoon to you.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Very well, welcome to the program. And Greg, welcome, and Chris is here as well. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just, I've been listening to the conversation, and it does seem like you're putting it into the perspective of vegans are the only one bringing their ethical beliefs into this, but we must understand that everyone who eats animals or anything that comes out of them has their own ethical belief systems. They view these animals as a product, as they don't value their individuality. And in my perspective, it doesn't matter what humans, if we view these animals as a product. It doesn't matter, because these animals value their own lives. They all see, hear, feel, taste, and they are harmed because of our actions against them. And these animals, they have rights. There is no characteristic that these animals don't have.
Doesn't a meat eater, Greg, have a right to choose to eat meat if that's what they want?
In my mind, no. No one has a right to violate the rights of someone else. No,
an animal.
I wouldn't say that at all.
An animal.
It is a sentient being that values their own life. They value it.
So
it doesn't matter if it's an animal.
So
we're all animals. Okay, we're animals too.
Greg, would you like everyone to suddenly become vegan?
Ideally, yes, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. But to answer your question directly, yes.
And should we be forced to become vegans?
Define force.
Invading farms and disrupting a farmer's work and invading a farm illegally. That sort of genre of activism.
Well, imagine if it was any other group that was having their rights violated, whether it may be of different genders or races. We now stand up for those people because we recognise their differences.
But animals are not people.
Define person.
Yeah, and name the difference between human and animals that makes any difference.
Greg, thank you for your call. Chris, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure we'll catch up soon. Wish you well.
Thank you.
Chris Hines, who is from the group Meet the Victims, has been a vegan for a number of years, was at this protest on Saturday. I know the texts have gone, well, there's a lot of them. We'll try and catch up with those during the course of the programme. Wish you well. You can text the programme 81333.